CRN, Chuck Wilder. Hey, let's go to my guest, Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K. She's an award-winning national security, border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. She is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She's also a TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. Her website, the KD Report, and she's streaming live, periscope.com, Facebook. Hello, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Well, let's see. Boy, I just see, like, the last 3 or 4 nights, I've just stayed up for ever and ever and ever. It seemed like, I know it wasn't a new soap opera. It must have been something going on in TV. You know, I got to tell you, listener, we were going to talk about a lot of different subjects, all right? The reemergence of Fast and Furious. One that would really surprise you is the money flowing out of the United States into Mexico. You know, it always happens, and you'd think it wouldn't be going with bad times, but apparently they're doing really good. And then the reemergence of Fast and Furious. But here these people come along and start rioting and protesting. And what else can we talk about, Kimberly, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what we're seeing across the country is legitimate news. I think that this is something the media needs to cover. I think it's a very tough topic for most Americans to discuss, and I think that it's good to always have discussions. And with each discussion, we want to find out, you know, where this stems from. And from what I've been able to gather with Antifa, the Congressional Research Office back here in D.C. has actually already labeled Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, absolutely, with ties back to Nazi Germany. So here we are. You know, obviously, I don't think that the majority of the people that we're watching on the screen rip apart cities and destroy property are actually aware that their leaders or their elders came from or are actually from the Nazi party, where that's something that the left always likes to lament the right with. They like to say that Trump is a racist, he's a Nazi, all of these labels, and unfortunately labels have meaning when it trickles down. And the rest of us who are living our daily lives are faced with it. Those labels do have meanings. So, as we see the pictures, I mean, it's devastating to see. It's devastating for me to see what happened in Washington, D.C. I have a daughter that's in law enforcement in San Diego, and to see, what's going on there and the extra measures that they're having to go under to make sure that just law enforcement are safe and that the buildings are safe that they're working in. So, I mean, when you see this, and it comes down to we actually have attachments to things like this, it's something that's really, really worrisome and something that we really need to pay attention to and try to figure out the least divisive way to, diffuse the situation so we can kind of get back to some sort of normalcy. But I really think that when you look at this and you pair this up with COVID, people have been pent up in their homes and apartments for a long time, a couple months now. And so, I don't want to say that this is something that kind of lit the fuse to have this, absolutely horrific thing happen to Floyd up there in Minnesota. But, we have to leave our homes and we have to get back to life, and we have to face these tough issues, and this is going to be that catalyst that's going to force Americans to come out of their homes and apartments and have to get back into reality and dealing with everybody and trying to figure out how we can fix this problem that people in general just don't like other people. Are they racist for not liking other people? I mean, those are the issues at hand.
2 things real quick, and I'll, maybe we can comment on them a little later too, but when you talk about Nazis, okay, what are you talking about? I mean, this has nothing to do with German Nazis or, the person who is has so many, 13 different organizations that helps create these riots. And if you go back to Baltimore and the guy was being interviewed, well, I didn't get my check. What are you talking about? My check for protesting.
Yeah.
George Soros, who happens, go ahead and fact check it, is a Nazi, sympathizer, right? His father, used to go and round them up.
Yep.
The other thing is, some people are saying, well, COVID-19 has nothing that's going on right now. No, I think the number one thing that's going on is George Floyd, all right? But you got to think about it. All of these people out here, especially California and all these Democratic-controlled cities that are getting the worst of it, have been pinned up in their homes forever,
Yeah.
being told what to do. And no, they're not protesting about COVID-19, but you got to realize it adds a little bit more, what would you say, energy to what
Yeah.
they're doing.
Well, I
That
just
they're
think,
finally free.
yeah, I think, I don't know that they necessarily think that they're finally free. I just think that, you can only push down your feelings. Yeah, you can push down your feelings so far, and so far. And then one little thing will spark, and then all of a sudden you're very angry and you're lashing out at people around you, even though they had nothing to do with why you were angry in the first place. I think we're all guilty of doing things like that in the past. And so I think that's the easiest way to put the two of these together. But you also have to look at the election. That's we're really not talking about the election. We're in the middle of a presidential election right now, and there were a couple of different groups that were actually gaining favor with the president of the United States, and that's being the African Americans in this country. We're starting to listen to president and feel that they could get these jobs in the president's administration, been actually getting out there and helping these young leaders start businesses so they can get everybody inside the community working together and work themselves out of it. But instead we see now we're fighting COVID, now we're fighting I guess our neighbors, that they don't look like us, and we're fighting absolutely everybody, and everybody's angry. Nobody's a winner, nobody's a loser, and in the end it's our kids who aren't getting back to school. It's people like us who are productive and who like to work for a living, that are wanting to get back out into society and ensure that we do it in a safe manner. And there are restaurants. I mean, we were let out of COVID jail on Friday. Most of the country and here in Virginia as well. And so you look at these people, these businesses, restaurants. They just want to open up and start making some money and paying their employees, so people can kind of become whole again, if you will. And now this has kind of gripped the entire nation, and it's pretty darn convenient in a way that this is coming about. It certainly seems that there's certainly a lot of investigative reporting that can be done on this issue to find out exactly where this is coming from, and finding out how we move forward here as a nation.
Yeah, and you notice no Trump rallies. Okay, that they've been successful at that, and never let a crisis go to waste. Hey, real quick, I know you're in Washington D.C. and I'm out here in L.A. Your daughter, all right, works for the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I don't know what you were watching, but if you got the exposure out here of what was going on in Santa Monica,
outrageous. It's outrageous.
The sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Well, I mean, in San Diego, it's just when you're seeing that, when you talk to young people, and I'm lucky or fortunate enough to have my daughter that works in law enforcement. They are at the stage, their idyllic stage in life, where they just want to make things right and make sure that they get the bad guy, and it's something that you're proud of. But when you look at this and then you think of I'm starting to watch TV, I'm starting to see what's going on. I'm all the way across the country. I'm like, oh my gosh, is my daughter going to be safe? Is she going to be safe? Or do unknown people that absolutely hate law enforcement, whether they're secretaries or whether they're in forensics, there's no they don't care.
Yeah. What I was going to mention was that because she's with the sheriff's department in Santa Monica, they were having the problems, and all of a sudden the police said, "All right, come on." They had two big trucks. They pulled up. They're the Santa Monica Sheriff's Department, and they got water hoses on the top of the, water nozzles on top of the trucks. And they took care of that crowd within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's what I've always said. Israel uses that on the border.
Yeah. Well, we don't use that on our border. Whether that could be, should be, is a different debate. But what I can say, at least from law enforcement that I'm speaking with here in Washington, D.C., as well as in California, that they have plans. They have, for personnel. they have evacuation plans to get people out of buildings, whether they've got to, go to a specific area. They've all been trained. They know this is coming, and they do the monthly drills like we do the monthly drills for like the, fire, the fire extinguishers, and for the people that, we have earthquakes, or we do all of these different types of, monthly, bills, and we go through this process for a reason, because you don't know how you're going to react in when an emergency faces you, and hopefully it's so droned into you that you'll just actually act. And law enforcement is doing the best they can right now. The president was on the phone with a lot of different governors, saying that they needed to take care of the situation, and they do need to take care of the situation. And people that work within sheriff's departments, PD, National Guard, a lot of these guys and gals come from the military, so they have a lot of experience under them. You give them a plan, you give them orders, and they'll follow through with those. And right now, I think, the first night on Friday, everything was kind of like, we're just going to kind of feel it out. And then, of course, on Saturday and last night, it just completely got out of control, because some people are not saying, we are not going to let this happen. Not in my town, not in my neighborhood. We are not going to let this happen. And we're going to detain these people that we plainly see robbing and looting, and putting them away until we can actually come back and identify the people who they are, figure out where they live, and put them through the criminal justice system harshly. Because when you're suffering something like this, you see someone lose their life, and whatever happened there in Minnesota, the people there are right to be angry. That man should not have died, and he should not have been put in that situation, period. However, things have gotten out of control. Where was the mayor of Minnesota and the governor of Minnesota saying, you know what, that's it. We already lost one guy. We're not going to lose anymore. And you're not going to rob and steal your way to having the flat screen TV that you really want in your neighborhood. So it's a way of going about it, I think. And I think that when you're looking at law enforcement, a lot of them, like I said, they have been in the military, so they're looking at it as, okay, well, here's what we do. Here's plan A, and we follow A, B, C, D, and at the end, we've secured the zone, if you will, and we have actually halted the advancement. And right now, you've got a lot of governors and a lot of mayors who seem to be quite content with letting people, carry on with this violence and rob and loot and just set things on fire. I mean, that comes at a cost. Who's paying for that? Insurance companies, the people who actually own those businesses. A lot of those people in those regions, they're actually minorities. So we gave them a hand to start their own business, and their own people are burning them down. So I mean, there's got to be a frank discussion, but it's not going to be able to get to the discussion era until the breakouts of this violence are absolutely suppressed, and we sort out what we need to do, and then we can move forward with all the discussion that they want.
I saw a couple of interviews out here. Okay, some of them with business owners that were burned down or almost burned out.
Yeah.
They said, look, we don't have insurance. We couldn't afford the insurance.
Yep.
And we've been working a long time to rebuild this up and all this stuff. There were some other interesting interviews about people I guess they chased him, one guy for sure, chased him with a car, and then they jumped out of the car and they got him. And he was a very friendly guy, that had been looting. And they said, well, why are you doing this? I mean, are you that upset? The guy said, look, I got to be honest with you. I'm doing it for the money.
Yeah.
For the money, okay? And they said, well, what about George Floyd? He said, well, that could be part of it, and mainly, I'm going to tell you the truth. For the money, a couple people, they do. I don't know if they're saying they're getting paid to go out and do this, or they're just saying, well, I'm going to steal these shoes and I'm going to sell them. Right?
Sell them, exactly.
But they have nothing to do with George Floyd.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's just the people, especially in Minnesota, where this all kind of started. They said, okay, first we want justice. Okay, so all 4 officers were fired. Like the next day, they were fired, and then it's like, well, we want more justice. And the main guy that had his boot on this man's neck, which was horrific to watch. But you look at this, and they want justice right now. Well, we have due process in this country. And unfortunately, they did not want to wait for that due process, which takes a few weeks and a few months to unfold, in a lot of different circumstances here. And we don't know exactly what was said. We don't know what the officers who were around, the other three officers, we don't know what they were saying to the one officer. Maybe they were saying, get your boot off this man's neck. He's clearly struggling. Let's push him out. Or maybe they're saying, hey, keep doing it. It's work. We don't know. And this is where discovery comes in. This is where we have due process, because we are going to look into the situation and law enforcement, and you're going to have DAs and you're going to have prosecutors, go through this with a fine tooth comb, and then we'll see what happens. But expecting justice to happen tomorrow on something like this, it just isn't going to happen. So that's the excuse a lot of people use. Yeah.
Rush. Yeah. The old saying, rush to judgment.
Yeah.
It's so many times it's been proven wrong.
Yeah.
But you see that so many times, these things have happened and you haven't had the right results. But
yeah,
we're certainly working on it. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A. I see some of the interviews that were going on out here, and with Democrats, okay, and raising heck, and they were talking to a few people, because it's Democratic cities, okay, and they were the ones that were doing the spokespersons, and one lady was talking about, and she's high up in LA or whatever, about Trump giving out dog whistles, and the way they put this race in here, like, it's an established fact that for blacks, the unemployment rate was the greatest ever in the history of the United States.
Yeah.
So, Trump is not a racist, and look at his past history and you'll know that. So
yeah,
you're going the wrong way, Democrats, if you're trying to win an election that way.
Yeah.
That's serious stuff,
I tend to do that.
What we're talking,
And I also think that these lawmakers in particular, they're the ones that are actually, trying to perpetrate this, or get, people who are listening to them to perpetrate violence. When you listen to what they're saying, look, okay, those are Republicans and the president, bad people. You need to go, take them down. We need to get rid of all these, nice stores that are around us and all this stuff, because they're bad, evil people. And they never parse it in a way that, these people typically go into their own neighborhoods and burn them down. Over the weekend, I read something about Hollywood, the movie stars and actresses and so on and so forth, actually putting forth money, paying for bail for people who were arrested and put in jail for looting, robbing, burning, arson, whatever you have and think. Why don't they take some of that money and some of those, livelihoods and those businesses that got burned down and robbed? Perhaps they can help them rebuild their business so they can get back to work.
Yeah.
So that's my
People
thing.
are paying, maybe they're paying for their bail because they're saying, under the table, like, thank you for not coming to Hollywood.
Yeah. It's appalling to me. That money could go to a lot better use. And if these people were just protesting, which the vast majority, 95 or plus percent, were just actually protesting, which is enshrined in our First Amendment, then that's great. The others that decided to take this into a violent term, where they were committing arson, they were robbing places, that moves off into a different area that's not protected under the United States Constitution, and they need to pay the price for that. And if we don't come down hard on some of these people, then this will continue to happen every 4 years when we run through an election, because that's all they're doing is trying to politicize this, and it's not something that should be politicized whatsoever, because these are people's livelihoods. They're not rich people. These are people's livelihoods.
Right. You know what? And Derek Chauvin, Chauvin, he's not going to get away with this. He is going to be charged with murder. He's gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen, and it's going to take course. And you better hope whoever that's saying, hang him now, get him right now.
Yeah.
He looks guilty as hell. But if it ever happens to you, I guarantee you're going to want your due process. There's a reason that it took us many, many years to come up with supposedly the right law enforcement acts.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We've run out of time, Ms. Dvorak, and I certainly appreciate it. And had so many other good things to talk about, but we talk about the bad things too, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Yep.
I'll be the ugly.
Everybody have a safe
Thank
week.
you.
Bye-bye.
You too. All right, Kimberly Dvorak.